Welcome. Oh, sorry. Fuck you. What? Just do the opening. Do I have to do everything for you?
Last Pint Productions presents the New Way Podcast with Ben and Matt.
Does it, Ben?
The New Way Podcast contains adult content.
What kind of adult content are you talking
It involves me putting my foot up your fucking ass.
That's, like, gay.
No, it's not. It's called fucking ass kicking is what I'm about to do. I'm gonna put my fucking fist in your fucking tit.
You're gonna put your foot in my ass and your fist in my tit. I pay money for that kind of thing.
Well, throw one at me. Throw one at me, brother.
Fucker. I'm gonna break this bottle. Fuck you! Hey. Sorry. I'm sorry. I love you. Those words came out of love.
But I fucking hate you.
Fuck you! Damn it! Fuck you! Listener discretion is advised. Dick.
I want you to do me a favor.
Yeah, sure.
I want you to hit me as hard as you can.
Oh. Motherfucker!
You seem a decent fellow. I hate to kill you. You seem a decent fellow. I hate to die.
I know Kung Fu. Show me.
Why don't you just join the union? We'll go upstairs together and Camp Daddy.
This union, is there going to be meetings?
Of course.
No meetings.
Everybody wants to be naked and famous. Everybody wants to be just like me. I'm naked.
Will you help teach me about this? What is it? A new way?
Welcome once again to the New Way with Ben and Matt. I am M-A-T-T.
I'm not spelling out my name, but
I'm B-E-N. Ben.
I'm Benjamin.
Ben.
Scott Wilson.
Jammin'.
Yes. Anyways,
named after the rat in the movie Ben. Ben.
I wasn't named after the rat. I was just named after the Michael Jackson song, and then later realized that song was about a rat.
That's a sad origin story.
Yeah, it is. It's not my best superhero story of all time. Anyways, thanks again for tuning in and listening this week. Of course,
let's be kind of honest here with this. I'd like to say hi to Sarah, maybe Nick, probably Mia, and my mom. And I'd like to thank the four of you for keeping this little podcast running. And we appreciate
you may underestimate it a little bit. There are a few people that I know who are listening in occasionally, if not all the time. So, I mean, we have...
They've listened to more than I have.
But we do appreciate everybody, and like I said, or like Matt said on the last one or the one before that, if anybody does want to hear about anything, of course we will bring it up. In the next few weeks, I think we have the design to get somebody in to do some more fun things with us. Maybe eventually we'll try and do one of the Skype ones, but we'll see how that works out.
It's a little technically difficult, but and I think also like we have some plans, I think, for the end of the summer to maybe do kind of a recap on summer movies and do some more kind of recent content instead of kind of our hey, remember when lists of best things, which of course we're going to do right now.
Right, of course, yeah. We're not going to stray too far today, and we're going to kind of go and chronicle through some things that we like.
Chronicle, it's a good one.
Oh man,
sorry, I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah, but before we even get into that, we're going to go through a period here of the next few weeks of I think trying to double up. Maybe triple up some podcasts here.
It's like a triple podcast.
Right, we're going to do a triple podcast.
It might be even a quadruple podcast.
As I'm waiting for the impending birth of my twin daughters. After which, I'm assuming that things are going to change a little bit. And, like, it's going to be fine. And we're going to continue doing the podcast and continue doing our normal thing.
It's just going to be me.
No.
And I won't have Ben bringing up old, like, oh, what's your favorite popcorn movie? And Ben's like, well, it's a little-known film from 1937 that, Goes great with a glass of sake.
Well, here's my... Oh, yes. Do not knock the sake.
Nakasaki.
No, but I think that what we're going to have end up happening, and I'm really anticipating this a lot, is that soon after the birth, we're going to do the podcast at my house.
Oh, yes.
And it's going to be very interesting.
It's just going to be twin girls constantly walking up and be like, do you want to play with us?
If they came out and they were immediately saying that, then that would be kind of weird.
It's funny you should be talking about babies, because I read... Ben doesn't know that I'm going to bring this up.
Matt's like, you may not know this, but I am actually a father.
And my boy, he's 15. He loves movies, but he likes Man of Steel.
And he wants to be on the podcast.
Yeah, we might be able to get him. I don't know yet. I read on like one of these stupid like series of like little known facts on some website, probably the Chive or whatever. Who I applied to, and if you're listening, Chive, since I did put this podcast as part of my repertoire, now you see I'm not just whistling Dixie. I read a fact that horrified me about newborn babies. Well, actually, also about the baby when they're in the womb. Do you know about something called lanugo?
Is that a sex position?
No, I wish it was a sex position. It's way more horrifying. So, apparently, children in the womb... I don't know if this came up in any of your, like, birth... Like, what to expect when you're expecting books.
Hey, I've read books, man.
Every time I go to Ben's house, there's another book on the table of, like, what to do when your twins get creepy. And, like, other, like, normal things that you have when you have a baby. So, I read this thing called lanugo. Lanugo, and I'm going to read this from Wikipedia here, is a very fine, soft, and usually... unpigmented downy hair that grows on a fetus. And apparently it starts...
Oh, no, I know that.
...as a mustache.
No, I know that.
And then it grows around the child.
No, I know that.
It gets worse. It grows around the child. I didn't know
it's called lanugo.
Lanugo. Of course, it's something creepy that sounds like, beware the lanugo, it will get you at night. All right, so the kid grows a mustache that grows around itself, much like Wilford Brimley.
This is both sexes. This happens with males and females.
This doesn't happen just to like young, like porn stars or Ron Swanson.
The doctor who created this was not just watching Burt Reynolds in the womb.
Created. Wouldn't it be amazing if I made up a story about children looking like Burt Reynolds?
Yes.
So yeah, the wolf child grows the hair around his body, and then it proceeds to eat the downy hair off of it, and the first poop that your kid has is expelling the lanugo. You get a hairy shit from your baby because they ate the hair off of their body.
The miracle of life.
This is the horror of childbirth. Listen, I've heard all the stories about, women pooping themselves and all that stuff. None of that fazed me, except for two little hairy children growing in your wife's tum-tum. And right now, they're pretty close, so they're probably like getting ready to.
I think that they
eat the hair.
The thing is they grow the hair between like the 33rd and the 35th week, which we are just beyond the 35th week now. And then they don't eat all of the hair; they shed a significant amount of the hair.
Do you?
But then. Yeah,
Sorry.
I don't know what you're laughing at here.
Because I wanted to know if with twins, do they eat each other's hair off, like to like help them out? Because it's got to be hard to get that hair on your back or like in the taint.
That is not the way it works.
They don't like team up like Wonder Twins.
No, they don't.
Power of teeth, power of hairy back.
Despite what you may think, they don't spend the time hanging out, high-fiving one another about how awesome their mustaches are.
Talking about the new Georgia Bulldog season.
Talking about how, dude, we are totally ruining the season for my dad. I know.
Yeah, they're not ruining just this season. They're ruining many seasons.
They're not ruining. I'm planning on dressing them up and taking them to games. It's going to be awesome.
I was thinking about. I saw on like the same thing I was reading had a picture of someone had dressed up as like the adults had dressed up as orcs, and they dressed up their like toddlers as hobbits.
Okay, you tell me if you think this is out of bounds, because I think it's slightly out of bounds. I mean, I'm changing the subject here. You brought up football season.
Yeah.
Which we're not going to make this a sports podcast. We're not going to talk about football season,
even though it's sort of sports oriented.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. I meant to look at the schedule. I was completely slammed today. Do you remember if? I believe the Green Bay Packers are playing at the Baltimore Ravens on October 12th. Okay, you're going to look it up.
Yeah,
I know that they play each other on October 12th. I couldn't remember if it was at Green Bay or at Baltimore. If you don't know, I'm a huge Baltimore Ravens fan. Thanks, Nick. Anyways, I have the opportunity to shoot a project for my work on October 10th, Friday, in Baltimore, which was going to be the first time I really traveled after the babies were born later this month in August.
It's at Ravens.
It's at Baltimore.
Yes.
Do you think it would
on
be...
the 13th.
Do you think I should lobby for... I could stay with Candace, our friends, and my wife's cousin, and her fiancé, Candace and Frank. I could stay with them, work on Friday, hang out with them, go to the game on Sunday, and fly back Sunday night. Do you think that would be unreasonable?
Oh! You're putting me in the situation
I'm just asking
of taking
you. I was
a
asking
side
you.
in a
No,
argument.
not taking a side. I'm noticing that this is a possibility. That I could legitimately have a trip paid for me to go to Baltimore to watch a game. But here's the caveat. Like, usually I would say...
There's two caveats.
Well, no. First off, my mom's going to be in town. So she's going to be extra help to look after the kids.
Okay.
So that's one good thing. So there's the one thing on the plus side. There are a couple things on the bad side. I said that I would typically only be gone for one night, 2 at the very most. This would make me... I mean, I'd be gone for 3 nights, effectively, because I have to fly in on Thursday. So that's one bad thing. The other bad thing is the week previous, the Baltimore Ravens are playing in South Florida at the Dolphins, a game that I am going to, and that my Nick Sancroce, the now storied Nick Sancroce...
He doesn't exist.
He doesn't
He's not
really
a real
exist.
person. What kind of name is that? Santa Croce.
The fake Nick Santa Croce is actually coming to...
We combined Santa Claus and Jim Croce.
So, I'm interested in seeing how this plays out, because obviously it's a great opportunity, but these are the types of opportunities that I feel like will now slip away from me as far as fatherhood's concerned, because while my kids will never ruin football season for me, I think that if anything, it's going to be awesome. This type of thing is the first time I've actually noticed. I'm like, wow, I would do that in 2 shakes.
How much are the tickets? That's a question.
Well, I mean, I could probably get a ticket for $100.
Okay, so the money's not a huge concern. So it's really the extra night.
Well,
and you're
I'm
coming
paid.
off a week.
I'm paid to go up there, so I could take that out of what I'm being paid, and I could also stay with a friend, so that's more money, sort of like out of my pocket.
You still got to look at the cost of the game.
The cost of the game would be like $100 probably.
All right.
If I got crappy seats or whatever. But anyways, I was.
Well, I don't know why you made this 2-night rule to begin with. That's especially with all the work stuff you have to do.
But I'm not traveling out of town in September. I could. Well, and we'll see if that ends up working out or not. But the one thing is my mother...
Your mom will be here.
My mother is going to be in town.
I'll be here. I will take care of your children. Your currently unborn children. That by that point will hopefully be hairless.
What was that thing that you talked about?
Lenovo. Lenovo. Lenovo ThinkPad. It's the...
Linoleum?
Lebovovich. Lanugo.
If you think Lanugo is terrifying, the idea of Matt taking care of my twin daughters is also similarly terrifying.
I'm a great dad.
I'm gonna have to call your boy up.
Yeah, you call
see what he says.
He is very well adjusted and has proper geek tendencies.
I would like to know how that all came about in 1998 when.
That was 97. Oh shit! It couldn't happen then. Damn it!
And now we've put a date on it.
Hoisted my own petard.
Did I beat you? Oh, I almost beat you.
I was 90. My birthday in 98.
I was
January 3rd, 98.
I was 98.
Yeah.
But after you. It was that summer.
Yeah, but you were younger than me, so you beat me.
That's what I mean. I was hoping I beat you, even though you were older than me. I was hoping for it to be that much more humiliating.
Yeah, because Ben is, as we discussed at the Beer Fest, is the unknowing nemesis. That is Ben's character. He unknowingly destroys other people's lives because of their mediocrity and his greatness.
Yes. Speaking of my greatness,
oh boy,
I would challenge all to a fight.
No,
I wouldn't. I would never. I'm not a fighter. Fuck that.
That was like the
awful.
weakest. That was the weakest attempt to like bridge into.
I don't even know. But how do you bridge into it? How do you do it? Because we've done pretty well. We've had some pretty. We've had some clever ones.
We usually just fall ass backwards into it. All right, so Ben ruined it. Today we're talking about fights, but now it sucks.
Yeah.
Way to go.
Let's just change the subject.
Can we just like not do the podcast?
Well, how about we just how about you just play some YouTube videos and we'll just record that and see what people say, because nobody's gonna say anything.
I'm gonna make them like videos that are super visual that have very little sound effects, just so people are like, what's happening? And we'll be like, oh my god, I can't believe I just saw that. This is the most amazing thing ever. But I'm not gonna tell you what it is.
Sounds like a good idea.
All right. So anyway, yeah, we're talking about fights, fight scenes in film.
And the funny thing is once again, I approached the subject and I gave it to Matt, and I haven't seen anything online recently that actually, qualifies what's a great fight scene or what's a bad fight scene or what is qualifies actually as a fight scene, which I think is actually kind of the funnier discussion than even going through the ones that we really like.
For sure.
But yeah, the fight scenes are like, it's one of those things. We're in the middle of summer right now, and I feel like there has been with summer movies, there's been sort of a sea change where your big action tentpoles back in like the 80s and 90s, even the 70s when you get back there, they like had the ones that were supposed to be action movies had these like big fight sequences, and they realized that they could get like the adrenaline going, and they could draw in like the teenage and past male audience or whatever to really sell it with like a fight scene. Like, oh, these are awesome fight scenes. You have violence. I mean, it's the whole idea. You're basically just translating kind of that animalistic urge to see or to participate in violence to the big screen. Now, the summer movies that we see, a lot of the set pieces or the giant action pieces very rarely qualify as what I would consider a fight. I consider them as large action set pieces, which could be a completely different topic. I think some of them may qualify as a fight, and we can talk about that. Some of them may not. But I think it's interesting that now the fight scenes are either going to happen when it's in a movie that's sub-compartmentalized as far as genre is concerned, where if you're watching, obviously, like a kung fu movie, or if you're watching a movie where, you're going to have two forces beating each other's brains out at one point, almost now, I feel like I see more fight scenes in independent and lower budget films than I do in the big tentpole
or foreign films
than I do in the big budget tentpole films. Do you not agree, or do you think that that's kind of a blanket statement?
No, I agree, and that was kind of part of that was hard for me to pull together my list at times. Because sometimes I go to something like the Avengers, okay, and I think the last sequence is an action set piece, but it's one of the few that I let on my list because I also felt there was a lot of combat, fighting between people. It wasn't all right. There's nothing on my list that's a giant fucking robot fighting a giant fucking monster, with one caveat that it technically fits those terms I just said, but it's different. But yeah, I don't want Transformers, I don't want Pacific Rim, I don't want any of these ones where it's like these big
it's funny
special
you say
effects.
that, because I think that like a lot of the old Godzilla movies, a lot of those battles definitely qualify as fight
Because
sequences.
usually they were one thing against another thing. And I think that's one of the problems with the new fight scenes is that there are too many moving parts. So it's not David versus Goliath.
Okay, well, let me first just visit an outlier from that.
Visit it.
What?
I said visit it.
Yeah, the Dark Knight Rises. There are two fights in between Bane and Batman. The Batman.
Between Bane. Not in, but like there aren't fights happening
in
between them.
Actually, there kind of are. Like, at one
little
point,
bit.
they're like, "Oh, we have to get to the part."
What's going on?
Especially the second fight scene where there's like complete pandemonium, which is one of the things that ultimately, I mean, honestly, let me take a quick aside here.
Oh boy,
does it not bug you and any? I'm talking to Matt here, and any listener that there are those scenes, those fight scenes, where there's just pandemonium happening around them, and then everything just kind of funnels in, and they allow for this, like, 4-minute fight sequence while people are, like, dying and stuff around them. It's almost like they have this magical force field, or that people outside of, like, that fight are like, oh, shit, don't get too close to them, because, man, they got shit going on right there. Like, they're actually thinking.
There's no one guy that just runs up and be like, I got a fucking bottle, I'm gonna shake Batman.
Yes, exactly. Because honestly, in real life, what would happen is they would be engaged in combat, and somebody else would fucking double team him, and somebody else would probably kill the other guy.
Sometimes, although like the few fights I've seen, and these involve mostly like watching things on YouTube because I've never really been involved in a fight scene. There tends to sometimes be that thing where people are afraid to go up there.
I understand that. I'm talking about in the context of a battle.
Yeah, probably. It seems like there's so much going on in the Batman one that it's
like for example, one thing that I thought it's a good point to make, just because it's the same actor and the same context. In Braveheart, they stray away from that. It's all about the pandemonium of the battle. I mean, it's always...
Except that William Wallace always comes out... See,
well, here's what I'm saying.
Okay.
It's all about the battle, and even in these moments where he's fighting one person, he's fighting another person, and another person's attacking him. They do a very good job, or Gibson did a very good job, actually, of designing those fights, where it didn't turn into where he's, like, fighting one guy one-on-one.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, in The Patriot, which I actually was watching The Patriot again recently, and The Patriot's actually a pretty damn good movie. It's not a bad movie. I mean,
it's the best that... Well, other than, like, Stargate, it's one of the best.
It's Emmerich.
Like,
it is the best Emmerich.
Yeah.
Like, I actually turned to Beth, and I told her, while The Patriot was on, I was like, I should have mentioned The Patriot as one-hit wonders.
Chick flicks?
No.
Oh.
Yeah. Yes, the ultimate chick flick. But The Patriot is a chick flick because it's Heath Ledger, and because he dies and he's fighting for his woman.
It's two Australian men pretending to be American patriots.
God. Well, I mean, but here's the funny thing is that movie is completely competent. And the great thing is that battle at the end of the movie is meticulously done from the standpoint of the actual tactics used. And it's perfect until you get to the point where you have Mel Gibson facing off against Jason Isaacs, who's the bad guy.
Lucius Malfoy.
And then all it is everything's happening around them, and they go into this 5-minute fight and I'm like, that would never happen. It just doesn't happen. It pisses me off in movies
agree.
where you have these like war movies or whatever, where you have two people fighting in the middle of a battle. I'm like, that would never. I don't know. That just pisses me off. But anyways, to completely go aside from that. Obviously, those qualify as fights.
Yes.
Or the Patriot, that qualifies as a fight scene.
I tried to keep... Like, it's funny, I really did actively try to keep mine from group battles. I consider those battle. Like you said, where you have like an action sequence, I consider those battles. Even though they focus in on two people during that battle, it's a battle.
Here's the exception, though. If it's one guy facing off against a lot of people...
Like Oldboy?
Like Oldboy?
That was on my list.
Okay. Like The Matrix Revolutions? Or not Reloaded, excuse me.
I refuse to put any of the Matrix movies except for the first one on this list.
Okay.
And I don't really love the first one either, but it's way better than those other two.
I still think the fight sequence with the Smiths.
I think it's
the
a bunch of CGI masturbatory nonsense.
Okay, whatever you say.
That's what I say.
It's not mostly that, but
It's mostly that.
it's not mostly that.
Mostly. It's mostly a fake Keanu Reeves mostly fighting a lot of the other fake Australian Hugo Weaving.
They
mostly
come at night. Mostly.
On my list. Good transition. One of my favorite fight scenes is the end of the movie Aliens between Ripley and the
Interesting. So
Mother Queen.
We're already getting through some kind of interesting territory here, but here's the one.
And that's the one, by the way, that fits what I said before. It's the only giant robot versus monster that I will allow on my list.
Oh wow, that is actually pretty awesome. I like it. I do like that. But here is the funny thing. So we're kind of getting into what defines a fight scene. Now we could, if we were connoisseurs of, Hong Kong and Asian cinema, we could probably talk about hundreds of movies that have these great kung fu sequences. Kung fu movies are sort of their own, they have their
kung fu.
They have their own thing. And I don't really want to get into that. I mean, there are some great ones. Obviously, there are some great movies from that period of time, and we were even talking from the 50s on, where we're talking about foreign cinema, but those all kind of feel the same to me. I mean, they're all. There might be a few that are just exemplary when it comes to the presentation of it and the people involved and the choreography, but ultimately they are all sort of their own subgenre. So I kind of wanted to eliminate those because we could talk about them forever.
No, and I'm gonna say, and I kind of that's why I picked the only one I picked out of that, and it's not even really doesn't quite fit in that, is Enter the Dragon. Which mainly just because it's a great movie. It's a movie about nothing but fights with these things string together, but it's also completely different fights. You have all of these different types of styles.
No, it's fantastic. Which is and Enter the Dragon is obviously the one that you would want to mention.
Yeah, I wouldn't mention the rest or Ong Bak, but that's
sure.
Yeah,
but here was the thing that kind of led me. If we were going to extricate all of that, what would we talk about as far as how would we sub-compartmentalize these? And I really think that they get broken down into 4 categories. There's hand to hand.
Okay.
And hand to hand doesn't just mean kung fu. There are plenty of great brawler.
It mean men masturbating other men.
Yes,
that's hand to dick. That's right. That's hand to dick.
That's hand in hand to dick and dick.
Hand in hand.
There's hand to hand fights, which are the most classic, but exist in a lot of different sort of types of fighting.
And involve a lot of Foley work.
There's weapons, which means a gunplay, basically, when you're having fights with guns.
Or, well, let me see where you're going.
Then there's advanced weapons. And I consider advanced weapons. Now, hand-to-hand, I also consider melee weapons part of hand-to-hand. If you have a axe, or if you have swords. I almost consider that
I was going to say,
hand-to-hand.
you're skipping a huge section, which is sword fighting.
Well, no. That's melee. It's melee weapons, is what that is. That you're talking about.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I get that, but sword fighting is almost its own category.
Well, I mean, we could talk about sword fighting forever, but I consider it almost in that hand-to-hand.
We could talk about sword fighting forever. No, we
forever.
couldn't. We couldn't. I run out after one movie.
You're after the Princess Bride,
Yes.
you're done? Yeah, of course. No, but I consider that almost part of hand-to-hand. Melee is sort of a sub category of that. Then there's advanced weapons. And advanced weapons, what I mean by that is, artillery that doesn't, or technology that doesn't actually exist. I mean that...
Lightsabers.
Blasters.
Laser
blasters.
guns.
Whatever you want to put in there. I mean, there's all sorts of science fiction movies that have great fight sequences that don't involve anything that really
Dogs
exists.
that shoot bees from their mouths.
Yes.
Okay.
Or laser cats. And then my last thing actually falls under all those categories, which is comedy. But
yes.
But comedy fights tend to be staged far differently than the other fights,
I will argue that I think the best fights are the ones that incorporate many of those elements instead of just one.
I agree.
For example, do you mind?
No,
doing
please.
Example? Raiders of the Lost Ark.
And before he goes off on Raiders of the Lost Ark, if you wanted a movie that's like a thesis on fights just to begin with, it's pretty much the best one to go to because it has every type of fight.
And what is amazing about Raiders, and let's boil it down just to one fight: the fight against the big mechanic by the plane. Okay, is kind of where
It's the brawler fight.
It's the brawler fight.
It's the hand-to-hand brawler.
There's something that happens during a perfectly. Ben's going to leave. The room.
No, I'm actually just getting a refill on my drink, and I'm listening to.
But you can't hear me without the headphones. I'm very soft spoken.
Oh yes.
So I'm just going to monologue here for a while. What's amazing about that fight in Raiders, and why I think it's very close to number one on my list, if not number one, is that it does so many things right. One, it's comedic, for sure. It's also a bruising fight. Like, you see people getting hit, and you see the pain of getting hit. So it's not one of these where, like, there's no repercussions for a punch. There's also a lot of great action going on around it that involves the gun.
Can I interrupt one quick second?
Yeah.
The best part of that fight is when the bruiser dude, when the ball dude first hits Indiana Jones, and he just falls back.
Yeah,
on his ass,
like a sack,
like
of
half
potatoes.
concussed. That is awesome. I mean, yeah.
There's so it's a fight scene that tells you a bunch about the character that actually it furthers the plot. It pushes through. It really, like I said, it does everything right. One of the other ones I would put up against it, as far as doing the same thing of let's do something that's visually impressive that shows an athletic feat. And also involves some comedy and character work, is you mentioned before, but is the sword fight in The Princess Bride. Sword fight in The Princess Bride it tells you everything you need to know about the Man in Black and Inigo Montoya. Like, it's aside from the fact that it's perfectly choreographed, I mean, to a ridiculous extent, it's also just one of those, the fight scenes I tend to respond to the most are ones that I feel some sort of emotion or connection to the characters in.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, but Raiders it really may be my number one.
Yeah, I mean,
as far as doing everything right.
I didn't think of a number one, or I didn't
either, but I was just...
What I would say would
general.
be my top ones as far as actually, doing that. But anyways, I kind of wanted to just, kind of uniquely visit each of those categories. Because, like I said, we can say we actually want to, completely separate hand-to-hand and your melee or your sword fighting or your fighting with bows.
Melee. You're such a gamer.
I am.
No one used melee before video games. It's just true. Well, they did, way back in the day, and then it went away, and then all of a sudden video games came up, and what do we do when we need a weapon for close combat? It's melee. Melee.
Right. Okay.
I like that.
Well, anyways, as far as if we're just going to talk about hand-to-hand combat, there are a couple of great sequences to talk about. One we've talked about before, which is Lethal Weapon. I love the fight
absolutely.
scene and the front yard at the end of the movie. It's just really, it's brutal. It's awesome, and it's you've got some bruiser aspects going on there. Once again, you also have The Matrix, which I know you don't really want to mention, but the initial fight between Neo and Morpheus when he's training him, is one of the coolest, teacher-student interactions as far as in that context that I think I've ever really seen. I still remember I was enthused about the movie when I saw it in the theater to that point, but that first fight sequence was just I was like, wow.
No, and everyone will always kind of misunderstand me and my vitriol against The Matrix, but the fact is, it's scenes like that actually are what pissed me off about The Matrix, because I love that scene. I think, and it does just what we talked about a moment ago. It's a character moment. There's a little bit of humor. There's still something really cool to look at. There's this athletic display. It's great. You compare that scene to the ridiculous fucking gun scene in the lobby at the end, which looks really cool but has no purpose whatsoever as far as the story.
It was there
as
to be
far
cool.
is there just to like let's throw in this really cool scene, which is fine, except that they built such great things before that, and that's why that movie is always a letdown to me. But I love the kung fu scene. I think is great.
Yeah, I know kung fu.
I know kung fu. That's
but-
the one thing that Keanu Reeves knows.
And then you have the movies where you're designed to have great brawler scenes.
Boxing movies,
movies, and that sort of thing. Obviously, and I don't really want to get into those that much. I mean, there are some good ones, but some of them are a little weird. I do like the fight scene at Commando.
Oh my god, you brought up Commando. That's like probably bar none my favorite 80s action movie.
I know, right?
God damn, I love that movie.
There's a pretty good fight scene in Commando with lots of muscles, being
Come on,
flexed.
Bennett.
Yes.
He throws... Well, it also has weaponry when he throws the buzzsaw blade
Oh, sure.
at that guy.
Yes.
Yeah,
it's true. I suppose that could be considered a projectile if we want to get into that. Is there any other, are there any movies where you just really remember beating...
Hand-to-hand? You're missing a huge one unless you're putting it in another category.
Well, no, I was going to end on one. I wanted to know.
I assume you're ending on the same... You say yours first.
No.
Okay, Fight Club.
Okay.
It's got the word fight in it, so it had to be on our list. I mean, it's a fight club.
I don't think any of the fights in Fight Club are that well choreographed, which that's the point.
But they're Bruiser one. I like those. And you talked about Dark Knight Rises. Like, there's that one, and it's in the one shot, like, the part you don't like. But there's the one shot where Bane has him up against the, like, column.
And he's just
like, blah, 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 blah. And it's one of those where, like, whenever I watch a movie... There's usually like certain moments where I'm just like, oh my god, like that.
Well, I remember we saw the movie together.
Yeah,
and I still remember, like, I felt like your chair,
I was
your hard on got like so big.
I broke the IMAX screen.
Well, I just remember I saw your popcorn bag rise 3 inches.
I was like, that's so cool. It's like amazing. I'd like that, and it ties into a I can't. There's one I can't put on my list because it doesn't really fit.
You know what might have actually half inspired this is recently I watched the movie Goon, and the fight between Liev Schreiber and Sean William Scott, the end of Goon, is so epic.
And Goon just is a movie. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend you go out and watch it.
It really is good.
Not go out, but put it on Netflix. It's on there. It's a hugely underrated sports flick for sure.
I mean, it was really funny, and I mean, but the thing is, that's a movie that it's a movie that's an hour and a half long. It won't take you that long to get through it. The first hour is hysterically funny. The last half hour is all heart.
Yeah,
and it just goes balls to the wall with the blood and how nasty it gets, basically. Because I didn't laugh in the last half hour of that movie, and then I was almost happy for it after I saw it. Because after I finished the movie, I was like, wow, I didn't miss how funny it was.
Yeah.
But it just turned into this completely different type of movie.
Jay Baruchel?
Yeah, of course. But obviously, even here and there, I was trying for something like a quick laugh here or there. But the movie's very consistently funny for the first hour. I mean, very funny. I mean, it seems like it's going to be a great comedy movie. And then the last half hour is just brutal. And it's awesome.
Yeah, it's good shit.
And there's lots of blood.
All right, so what's your... I'm trying to see if I have any other hand-to-hand... I feel
that was the one I wanted to bring up. That was
it was Goon. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I don't think any of the rest of these qualify under that category. This is what I like about the podcast is that I had not broken things up really into categories. So, like, Ben usually... That's his main thing. Is like I've broken these up into 4 quadrants. Now I get to put my list in.
Now I want to talk about
I have one sort of add to fist fights, and it's funny because it's from a movie from this summer that I really actually did not like, but it had one fight scene that I thought was fucking amazing, which was the Man of Steel. And if you haven't seen Man of Steel, yes, the Smallville fight scene that takes place among the Smallville 7-Eleven, Sears, and most famously the IHOP, for some of the most amazing product placement of all time, is a scene of mainly fists There's definitely some weaponry
It's
involved.
flying fists.
But there are
flying
people
fists, yeah.
leaping around. It's one of the best sequences, I think. Probably the best action sequence for me in the movie. And it was also another one of those that while I was watching, I was like, holy shit, like I haven't really seen this done on screen before. So that'll be my last one for sort of handing fisticuffs.
If we did want to talk about sword fights, I mean, obviously we've already
The term is always funny to me. Every time, I can't not think horrible things.
I mean, obviously we. By the way, there's this. What was the movie? By the way, I know we talked about this. There was the movie that had the two people with the condoms fighting in the room that were both glow in the dark. Do you remember that?
There's Blake Edwards. John Ritter.
No. I remember explaining the scene to you, and you were like, "I've never seen this movie," and we finally figured out what it was. But there's a scene that, from a movie. It's an '80s movie. There's like a raunchy '80s comedy movie that I saw where it's like this guy hooks up with this girl who has a boyfriend, and then he's like, "Oh, I have something for you," and all the lights go off, so all you see is this dong floating around with like a glow in the dark dong that's green, and then all of a sudden you hear a knock on the door, and he hides, and then this other guy comes in, and he's got a red one on, so he's got a red glow in the dark dong, and so they obviously in the dark find one another. And then it's this battle in the dark where all you literally see.
It's skin deep. It's John Ritter it's Blake. But it's a Blake Edwards movie.
Okay,
yeah.
So then you have this.
I do love, by the way, that people. I literally just Googled two condoms fighting, and there's like a Yahoo question from 2007. It's just like, what's the movie scene with the glow in the dark condoms where they're fighting?
It's a great scene. It's hysterical. It's awesome.
I love the internet.
It's so funny. But yeah, anyway, actual sword fighting or using any sort of...
That's like Jay and Silent Bob where they fight with the dildos that are like lightsabers.
Yes, exactly. But we've already mentioned The Princess Bride, which obviously is the pinnacle for both of us, so we can't really even go beyond that. I there's
I didn't really have... the only one I had is I do like the sword fight in the first Pirates movie.
I really like the fight where they pick their weapons in Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
Yeah.
But like I said, that almost falls just into that...
I didn't know where... It was on my list, but I didn't know where to...
It falls into the Kung Fu movies. So even though it utilizes some of the environments very creatively, and the movie could be considered high art, it's still a Kung Fu movie to me. And it falls into that. But that is a great sequence where they actually use
and I liked a lot of the sword fights in the Pirates movies, the Pirates of the Caribbean movies, I thought were nicely... I think the first one between Orlando Bloom and...
Not Cutthroat Island?
No. Because it's also, like, I think The Princess Bride also sort of broke sword fighting for a little while, just because it did all of those tropes, but it did them to the end.
So the next thing I had was the advanced, or you had weapons. Okay, so
weapons
guns?
first, yes, because there's one that you have not thought of that you should have. I'm going to call that right now.
Interesting. Okay. So
one of your favorite movies too.
With the weapons category, I'm talking about
guns.
Yeah, guns or things that basically guns. Like for the first thing that came to my mind was The Killer, John Woo's The Killer, and some of the gunfights in The Killer are probably the best choreographed fight scenes I've ever seen. Now, obviously, everybody who's involved with those movies, they realize that nobody can shoot for shit, and they have unlimited magazines as far as that goes. There's one I'd like to go to that is the complete antithesis of that, but I really love The Killer. I think it's a that's basically, if you had to pick one movie and say, what are the best fight scenes not involving fists? I would say The Killer, directed by John Woo, 1999.
All right. I have one. Maybe you're getting to the one that I was thinking of. Okay, you seem like you're leading to another one.
The other one I wanted to mention was Grosse Pointe Blank.
That's what I was thinking. I wasn't sure that you'd have Grosse Pointe Blank.
Of course Grosse Pointe Blank, the final scene in Grosse Pointe Blank is, I think, one of my favorite fight scenes of all time. They're so cognizant of reloading in that scene. Yes. I think it's hysterical.
That's the main purpose of that is I'll go on that.
But anyway, so I love Grosse Pointe Blank, but that's almost... And the funny thing is, it's... balancing this complete dark comedy with this hyper realism of the actual violence of it.
Again, it does what
works.
a good fight scene
It works
should
very
do
well,
on
yeah.
there. I don't think I have. I did realize I missed one in Hand to Hand, actually Foot to Foot, which is the Karate Kid, which is not quite kung fu, but kind of. But I had to put that on there. But yeah,
I think that qualifies outside of it.
yeah, it's a little outside. But yeah, I don't think I have. As far as guns, most of my mine fall into either the comedy or the advanced weaponry.
Well, see, okay, so I'll start with one with advanced weapons.
Okay.
It's a recent film. I really love the entire, almost that 115 or 120 minute mark to the 140 minute mark of District 9.
It's on my list.
I knew
Fuck
it.
you.
I
God
knew
damn it. I hate you.
Just because I
It's
was
so amazing.
to anybody who doesn't know, and which I don't think we've ever actually even mentioned this,
Nah.
but Matt and I both went and saw District 9 before it came out, and we went and saw it, did the screening, and then afterwards had a Q&A with Neill Blomkamp and Sharlto Copley.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Which was amazing. And the funny part is we went to smoke a cigarette afterwards, and we're just hanging out, and they came outside to smoke a cigarette.
We pussed
and
out.
we pussed out. We could have.
We didn't want to be the assholes that were like, we want to fucking geek out about this movie with you right now, and we didn't.
Here's the thing. I would like to think that we would have. We would be cool enough. I would give us enough credit if we hadn't just walked out of a movie that we hadn't expected to be that awesome.
Yeah.
That if we had just seen them on a random day and known who they were, we could probably walk up and shoot shit with them.
Oh, I would have been.
But we were so geeked out after
I would have
we
sucked
saw
both their dicks twice.
We were so geeked out after we saw that movie. All we could say was we were just like sitting there, like, oh, no one to say.
My
I'm
God.
like, hey man, love the movie,
dude. If I'd only been working at the job I'm at now, where I now know a bunch of South Africans, I would have at least had the in to be like, hey, South Africa, apartheid, yeah. Like, something ridiculous. I probably wouldn't have used those. That's probably the worst possible thing I could ever have said in this situation at all. But okay.
Yeah. Anyways, but it was a lot of fun and it was really cool. I definitely got to ask Neill Blomkamp the question about why he shot on red.
The geekiest question asked at a
it was definitely
get-together.
the geekiest question asked at the entire screening. But that was a fantastic experience. But I just remember watching that movie, and I mean, I don't know if I've ever been more blown away by an advanced screening, just because I don't think neither Matt nor I had any idea of what to expect.
Well, and what's great is my brother and I, who's been on the podcast, maybe will listen to this. I'll make him listen this weekend. My brother and I are like constantly text one another, and we especially text when we're watching either good TV, good movie, whatever. And we kind of have those discussions since we don't live side by side, but we're close enough to we meet once a month, or whatever. So my brother sends me like a random text the other night, and he was like, "Fact: Harry Potter is the best use of CGI in a character setting or whatever, like something." And I was like, he put that, he's like, "Put that in your next podcast." And I was like, "I won't, because I love the Potter movies, but I completely disagree." And the movie I brought up, as I said, I think the best use of CGI for character development and story is District 9.
Oh, okay, fantastic.
I mean, and listen, and that's not to take anything away from the Lord of the Rings movies, which I think also do a phenomenal job of kind of using CGI for purposes of telling a story and furthering a character. I think District 9, though, is a thinking man's movie wrapped inside a summer blockbuster.
No, absolutely. And it wasn't really a summer blockbuster. I mean, it wasn't supposed to be.
That's why I'm excited about Elysium.
Yeah,
so.
and I think we're both very stoked about that. Anyways, with advanced weapons, we can get through a couple more things.
I had one on here, mainly, and it does not count. I just had to mention it, because it is another one of those, like, oh shit things that I've seen in a movie, and Spielberg does it better than anyone else. But it's Minority Report, which is it's more of a action set piece in the car factory. But he has that gigantic sonic boom gun that he shoots at Colin Farrell that I was just like, the first time it was like, and I was like, what the fuck just happened? That's a weird one on my list. Probably my biggest on the advanced weaponry side, again from a shitty movie overall, but maybe one of the best sequences in the series of movies, which is the lightsaber battle at the end of Phantom Menace.
That was the last one I was going to mention.
Yeah.
Because Qui-Gon Jinn and, Obi-Wan and Darth Maul, that sequence, I don't care whether you liked Phantom Menace, I don't care whether you thought it was the shittiest
No one
movie
wasn't
of all
shitting
time.
themselves with glee during that scene.
That was the coolest moment, maybe at that point in my life. That was the coolest thing I'd ever seen on screen.
That was 97, so you hadn't been laid yet. So,
but here's the thing. I mean, that whole fight sequence is amazing. And I mean, it's perfectly choreographed. The moment, the 40 seconds that take place after Qui-Gon Jinn has died, when Obi-Wan's waiting, and you see him hopping, waiting for the force field to open so we can go in and they engage one another, that sequence is done in one shot, if you notice.
Yeah.
That is about as cool as you could possibly get. And I don't understand how... I don't understand how Lucas didn't fuck that up.
Mine is, I don't understand how the same person that cut that sequence together directed the rest of the movie. Like, I have to believe that someone was brought in, and like, it's fucking Ray Park sitting in an Avid machine.
Yeah, exactly, right.
And it's another one of those that does a great job. Like, the shots, like, right where you're talking about, when Obi-Wan's sitting there fucking seething. And you also have, like, the part before that, before Qui-Gon dies, where he's, like, in his peaceful moment, and Darth Maul is just pacing on the side of it, poking, like, literally prodding.
Right.
You have all three characters differing emotions to the battle in that one shot. And how that same person created Jar Jar Binks, I will never understand. But
there had to be some sort
it's a beautifully... And, like, if you can just cut out the whole... little Anakin in the spaceship and all the rest of the stuff's going on and just watch that entire sequence through, it is brilliant. It's fucking perfect.
Yeah, it is. It's pretty awesome. Okay, so comedy.
I have one more on the advanced weaponry, Terminator 2. I had, other than Aliens, I had another Cameron
honestly,
in
we
there.
could list off dozens.
Yeah, but I like the Terminator 2 is also kind of like a fisticuffs with advanced weaponry fight because they are the advanced weaponry. I kind of dig that shit. All right, comedy for sure.
What do you have?
I have a couple things. I have the fight in Borat at the end of the movie.
That was one of the things that I was going to think about. Yeah,
yeah. It is uncomfortably long. That is maybe my favorite bit about it. Is it's one of those scenes that plays out so far beyond what you're like, when you see a scene start like that, in your head you're figuring they're going to pull the punch. Or they're going to hit whatever, and it doesn't stop. Like, it literally just keeps going frame to frame to frame to different rooms, to other locations, to where you're like, I don't know if I can handle this anymore. That's what I fucking love about it. I had the food fight in Animal House. That was a personal one.
Sure.
I had to have food fight. More comedy on here. I'm missing something.
I
kind of had Grosse Point Blank as comedic.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't really think that fight is funny, but it's based off of what they're saying. It's not based off of what they're doing. So
I have one other. It's Happy Gilmore when he fights Bob Barker.
That was my one that I was going to get to, because some of them are just totally
ridiculous,
over the top, and that is a hysterical fight, and obviously one of the most memorable fights, maybe of the. I mean, if you had to think, oh, what's a comedy movie with a funny fight in the '90s? I mean,
I feel like I feel in my head that there's something that I've always thought was a great fight, and I can't think of it because I think I'm through my list, but I really feel every time I always feel like I've left something out, but this is the one time that like. I feel there are concrete examples of things that I can't remember.
Maybe you can correct us on this. I mean, maybe you can come back and
actually what have we forgotten as far as fight scenes?
Well, I know that especially there was one comedy fight scene that I had in my head just a second ago, and it's now completely gone. I'm not sure what it was.
Yeah, and I was like trying to think back through like action comedies and some like Blues Brothers. I'm like, is there a good fight in the Blues Brothers? No. There's no good fight in the Blues Brothers. There's I don't know.
Oh, no, I remember what it was. Okay, yes, sorry. The one fight I wanted to mention as comedy, and I didn't write it down, of course. The one fight I wanted to mention was the fight between Nicolas Cage and John Goodman in Raising Arizona.
That's amazing.
Still one of the funniest fight scenes. Even though that's really a three-person fight, but really ultimately it's a fight between John Goodman and Nicolas Cage. I still think the hardest I've ever laughed in any fight scene is where Goodman, bowls over and Cage goes to, clasps his hand together and goes to knock him on the head and scratches his knuckles on the roof and just screams and goes, "Ah!" because that hurts him so much more than the fight does.
As such an underrated Coen Brothers movie for me. Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, the fight sequence where they're trying to get the babies from him, and then the whole fallout from that entire sequence. I mean, that whole segment is just pretty pure, unabashed awesome to me.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect... God, that's a perfect one to edit on. That's such a funny fucking movie. I'm sure we're leaving things off, and I'll occasionally get from my friends, who, again, shout out to Sarah, who put Ben in his place about Eternal Sunshine on a random Facebook post this week and really angered Ben, for sure, which I thought was... And that highly entertains me.
I was actually just kind of feeding into it, but I wasn't really mad.
Nah, but yeah, you guys please, either on our Facebook page or on the blog, or, just send us a message. Leave us a listen, every Friday I post a blog post on Last Pint Productions with a small summary of the podcast and places you can listen to it. And then I take that post and I promote it on our Last Pint Productions Facebook page. And then I take that post and I share it from my personal account. And then Ben takes that post and shares it from his account. In any one of those places, you are free to comment. We'd love it if you did it in the site, but usually people tend to do it on the Facebook one. And we're happy to talk to you. We're happy to hear you guys, we definitely want to hear someone just come to us and be like, what the fuck is wrong with you? How did you forget... blah, blah, blah. Or how could you possibly have mentioned Man of Steel?
Which I've actually kind of gotten on Rotten Tomatoes a couple times.
Tell those bitches to step up and get on one of the social media forums that I'm on.
All right, Anna, Roach, Insult Cake.
I've seen Roach comment. That's the guy that you can't get married to anymore. It's he commented on our website.
Who, Roach?
Roach.
Oh, yeah. Well, he's a badass.
And John Arthur Ingram, who may guest with us at some point, he definitely comments on our stuff.
Who has to guest with us at some point?
Yeah, absolutely.
We have to make that happen.
He's
soon.
got our microphone.
So, anyways.
Thanks, John. Anyway, I think that wraps up our... Unless you wanted to, fake some sort of fight or,
No, I think we've already done that in the opening, even though we haven't recorded it yet.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, Ben's gonna get back on board with recording our
tags.
Something you've already heard. You people have already heard. We have not heard. It's almost like you went into the future. You heard this.
Basically, listening to the Last Pint, the New Way podcast, is like time travel.
Fuck, it blew my mind.
I know, man.
Dude, Shane Carruth should totally be asking us
just watch Primer, and then listen to this podcast, and then...
Actually, that's all you need to do every day. Every day, you should just watch Primer and listen to our podcast. It's everything you need in life, right there. Maybe have some food.
I would love to see what this person looks like at 8 years old. Only does that.
We're gonna test it out on one of your twins. The other one will be the placebo. We won't do it to them.
We'll raise one normally, and then we'll raise the other basically just listening to the New Way podcast.
One of them's really messed up. It's the one that's not doing the New Way.
Of course it is. All right.
Well, all right, this has been the New Way podcast with Ben and Matt. I am Matt.
I'm Ben.
And we'll talk to you next week.
Cheers.
Cheers.